Thanks so much, Judy. And can I get a thumbs up that I'm live? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Wonderful. Great. So, yeah, as Judy just alluded to, she has approached this from a very educational standpoint, which is lovely and the point of the talk today. My background is actually in machine learning, statistics, computer science, and the very technical side of AI, and I'm sort of kind of making the journey from the tech side to more of the educational side. And in fact, I'm planning to join Judy as a PhD student this coming fall, which I'm quite excited about. So I'm going to talk about how there are several AI apps out there today. I'm going to highlight several of them that can improve your experience teaching in the classroom for any teachers that are watching this, and tools that students might be able to make use of if there are any students watching this. So you can go to the next slide.
Yep.
Wonderful. So, important caveat that I'm going to address in much more detail towards the end of the talk, because I want to talk about all of the exciting apps. But everything I'm going to show you, while exciting, definitely requires some thoughtful vetting, by which I mean there are some concerns from a variety of different perspectives when it comes to using AI, and especially when it comes to using AI in the classroom, and even more so with particularly young learners. So we're going to talk about all of those concerns. Just keep them in the back of your mind as we go through the apps that I'm about to describe. Next slide, please. Thanks. So there are three types of tools I'm going to go over. The first category is going to be tools for teachers. And these are going to help with things such as productivity or lesson planning, anything that might make the job of a teacher easier in the classroom with the help of AI, whether it's generating some sort of content, helping you stay on top of things organizationally, etc. Then we're going to hop into tools for students. And these are going to be applications that they're not going to be tools that do your homework for you. I'm not going to be talking through any tools like that today. These are going to be more apps that students can leverage to help them stay organized, or to help them check their grammar on an assignment, or maybe to help them learn more about a topic. So I have a couple there. And then finally, we're going to look at tools for actually teaching AI in the classroom. So for any teachers out there, if you would like to present AI topics to your class to help promote AI literacy, I'm going to give you some recommendations to do that. And before I get into the first apps, I wanted to say that every tool I'm going to show today is free. And some of them have pro versions that might offer some more features, but I wanted to specifically pick apps that give you the majority of the features. And in some case, which I'll highlight, some of the tools are completely free with no paid version at all. So that was something I wanted to do so that these are things you could start learning tomorrow without a cost barrier if you wanted to. Great. So again, this first category is going to be tools for teachers. So Adobe Express plus Firefly is a recent offering from Adobe that's going to allow you to use generative AI to produce photos, kind of like what you see on the screen there, where they prompted the application for a dog in a sweater with primary colors and a big smile. And it's generated sort of a hyper-realistic image to that specification. And where this could be really useful for teachers is that if you're generating lessons, or if you're making PowerPoint slides, or even if you're trying to present some sort of in-class activity that the students are working through on paper, and you need some creative storytelling to create a narrative that the students are going to follow along as they do the assignment, that would be a wonderful use of this software. So you could create some custom images all within a couple of seconds. And again, completely free of charge, which is nice. On the next slide, there's a second offering for creative image generation, which is Bing also has an image creator. It does much the same as Adobe's version. This one's powered by DALL-E 3, and I think the flavor of images you get might be slightly more cartoony, as opposed to where Adobe and Firefly might be able to give you that more hyper-realistic look. So just to highlight two tools that are out there for image generation. Great. So the moment maybe everyone has been waiting for, which is ChatGPT for use by teachers to maybe generate content or to ask questions. I think for all of those things, it is a fantastic tool. But today I'm going to present maybe an alternative. And so I'm going to give ChatGPT a red X today. And instead, I'm going to show a tool that I don't think is super popular. It's relatively new, but it's called Perplexity. And as my little caption says there, it's an academic AI chatbot. So what does that mean? It pretty much offers, and you'll notice the interface is quite similar to that of ChatGPT. You can start conversations, you can ask it anything, but it cites all of its sources by default, which is really powerful because when you type something in, say you're looking up the history of World War I, it's going to give you a summary just like ChatGPT would. But then it's going to link every single resource or citation or article that it used to generate the response. And all of those links are going to be clickable. So you can then go and explore whatever it used to build its response in case you wanted to know more. Or if you think that Perplexity might have maybe messed up one of its facts or something looks a little bit inaccurate to you, you could check out the source and see, oh, maybe that actually was right and you just didn't know. Or B, perhaps Perplexity actually made an error. Because as I'm going to talk about later, it's not foolproof. None of these apps are foolproof. But this is a really cool alternative to ChatGPT, I think, for teachers to use in the classroom. Great. So the next app for teachers is something called Magic School. And of every app I'm going to show you today, this one might be the most powerful, and it is completely and entirely free. So what you get is 60, I think they might have 64 or so AI tools that are all developed by Magic School. So this isn't a link. This isn't a list of links to other tools. These are all tools that Magic School themselves have developed. And it's going to cover a variety of needs teachers might have in the classroom. So just a few examples that are in the picture on the screen. There's a YouTube video summarizer, which I'm actually going to show you another example of, but that can summarize the contents of a YouTube video for you in text. One of the other links here is that you can generate a question set from a YouTube video. So if you've assigned a video for students to watch in class, you could plug that link in here and it could give you 10 to 20 multiple choice questions about the video that you could give to students. There are science lab generators where a science teacher might get new ideas for experiments to run in class. There's actually a teacher joke generator, which might be my favorite AI tool here in case you're feeling like you need to spice up the classroom with some corny jokes. They have that. You can generate lesson plans. There are rubric generators here, math question generators, unit planners. I haven't even given you a fraction of what it can do. And this is all available for free just through making an account, which is really awesome, I think, for teachers. Yeah, so this one, Got Feedback, is an AI feedback for student assignments. And so there are some extra considerations for this one, which I'll talk about in a second. But what this does is you can create a profile for all of the students in your class. And then throughout the year, you can upload any of the assignments that they complete to Got Feedback. And what it will do using AI is go through the assignment and give you feedback on the writing. It might give you feedback if you tell it to on the accuracy of the information. If it's a math or science assignment, it can actually even check for the accuracy of some of the calculations that the student does. And this is all excellent. And over time, you can build sort of a chronology of all the feedback that you've given a student over the course of the year, which is really, really powerful because then you might be able to see, student A has had problems on simplifying fractions throughout most of the year and it hasn't improved, so maybe I can help them now extra on that. Or maybe the student's writing style has suffered from some flaw, and I can see that over the course of the year, and now I need to step in and help. So it's really powerful for all this. But you might be thinking, this feels like I'm saving student data, and you'd be right, you are. And so when we talk about some of the caveats and best practices at the end, this is one of those tools you would have to keep those in mind for, where you are storing some student data in this case, and you would have to check with your school's policy, some of the service terms of got feedback, GDPR, just to make sure that you're not violating any rules from your school or data saving agreements or anything like that. But we'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. Great. So the next one is Conquer, and it's pretty simple in theory, but I feel like this would be something that would save me a ton of time in the classroom, which is generating questions using AI. And I think there are lots of these out there that you can give any sort of topic, and how they sort of work in the background is you might ask for questions about geography. And what it usually does is it just asks a chat GPT like chatbot for some questions about something and then spits them back out to you. That's what most of these do. But the reason that I picked Conquer is it's a little bit more sophisticated than that. And they've trained the question generating model on a lot more than just building off of some chatbot. It's sort of like their own bespoke chatbot for this task, which is really nice. And so what they actually offer is a huge library of pre-made quizzes, and you can see some of the examples on the screen there, from the novel American Farm, from the Cold War, Newton's laws of motion, plant cell structure, pretty much anything. And there are hundreds of these that already exist, and you can leverage those and then expand upon them. So if you found a question set you really liked, it can use AI to generate even more questions like those. Or if you don't find an example of the question set you're trying to use, you can ask it for literally anything and it'll generate one for you. And what I really like about this one as well is that it can do short answer, it can do multiple choice, it can do fill in the blank. I think it can even do maths problems where you are asked to write the actual numbers in instead of multiple choice. And that's a way better offering than most tools like this. And there is a pro version, but it does pretty much everything I just said for free, which is excellent. Great. So this is a specific AI YouTube video summary tool called summarize.tech. And I think it only works with YouTube videos as opposed to Vimeo, and there's no way to upload your own video and check it. So it is just YouTube. But I've used this tool pretty extensively in the past year or two, and it's excellent. It can provide summaries of literally anything, and I've tried it with all sorts of videos. And Judy and I were talking a bit earlier today about one way this could really be useful in the classroom is if you're introducing some of your students to AI or to summative AI or generative AI, you could, with your students, watch some sort of YouTube video and have the students sort of write a 1 to 2 paragraph summary of what the video was about. And then you could take the video link and plug it into summarize.tech and see what it produces for its summary of the same video that you all just watched. And then it would be a really interesting discussion in the classroom to go through the AI's summary and compare it to each student's summary that they wrote in the class and see what's similar or what might be different, or perhaps even check if the AI made any errors in its summary that the class realizes, or if someone in the class also might have messed up a fact that the AI got right. So this could be a really fun way to introduce AI in the classroom in an environment that the teacher has a lot of control over, which is good. Okay, and GradeScope. This is a tool that I have a lot of experience with, both as a student and as a teacher during my undergrad. And so if you haven't heard of it, I know it's getting fairly popular, but you can give assignments to your students, whether they're on paper or online. And, and say they're on paper and the students write down all of their responses. You can then scan all of the tests and they the paper as if you were looking at a handwritten copy. And then you can grade that way, which is really nice. And it does AI grading. I just learned today that they're experimenting with running and checking the accuracy of actual code. So if you're running a computer science class and the students are writing code, GradeScope's now starting to be able to check that it's accurate, which is quite cool. And this is just a time-saving tool, I think, more than anything for teachers, especially if you have a really large classroom. So I think this works well in college settings, maybe a bit more than K through 12, but I wanted to bring it up nonetheless. So that was all tools for teachers specifically. And now I'm going to go over some tools for students themselves to use in the classroom. So yeah, the first one is Goblin tools. And I think this is a pretty niche tool because no one I've talked to has heard of it or has used it before. But Goblin was originally created so that neurodiverse students would have a tool that they could use in the classroom to keep themselves organized and on task and to help them focus their efforts on what they needed to do. So the main tool from Goblin is a magic to-do list where if you type in the item that you need to do, so say it's create a short story about something that you learned in history. Goblin tools will take that and break it down into 5 to 10 actionable steps that a student can take to complete that task, which is really cool because some students get really bogged down by how to start or what they need to do to start, but it's hard for them to make progress. And so that's what Goblin tools can help with. It does a load of other things as well, like checking speech and saying how formal or not you are. It can also estimate how long a task might take, whether it's a couple of minutes, hours, days. And that's really nice when students have a hard time figuring out how long they want to spend on something. And so one way that this could really be used in the classroom is if you're working with special needs students or you're an additional support teacher, Goblin tools could be really exciting to share with your students because you might be able to ask them, hey, let's break down this task into how long it might take. And you could plug it into Goblin tools and see what it says. And then you can ask your students, is this how you would break down this task? And then that dialogue is actually really interesting because you can see how your student might think through something and whether this tool is actually helpful or not. So a lot of cool use cases with Goblin tools. It's one of my favorites on the list for sure. Grammarly, this might be the most popular tool I present today, and so I won't go over too many of its typical functionalities like spelling and grammar. Instead, I want to show you two of the other things that it can do. So one is a plagiarism checker, which is really nice, both for teachers and for students, I think. As you're writing something, if you want to check to make sure that you haven't plagiarized anything, when students are writing their very first research type papers, I think I remember being terrified that I might be plagiarizing something, and a tool like this would have really eased my mind, giving me peace of mind that I wasn't doing that. And another thing that it can do is detect tone in your writing, which I think is really intriguing. And so the screenshot on the left of the screen shows, I think actually Judy's writing over a period of a week and how the confidence directness, informativeness, curiosity, and so on are rated using a percentile and how much they increased or decreased over time, which is a really interesting feature for students who or teachers who want to know how they're coming across in a certain environment. So I just wanted to talk about those two other ways you can use Grammarly that I think are a bit different than its typical use. Okay, this next one is Notion, which is a really powerful Trello board, basically. If you're familiar with, I think, like Kanban boards, Trello-like boards, Notion is pretty much a version of that, where students can make to-do lists, they can move them between about to start, starting, and done. Basically, a really good organizational tool that teachers could use too. And there's a big AI component because it can break things down into shorter to-do lists. It can also help you elaborate on ideas that you might have using AI. So a lot of options with Notion. It's a really cool app. And then Duolingo, in the interest of time, I won't spend too much time on other than to say this actually is an AI tool. It's for learning languages, if you haven't heard of it. And the two ways it uses AI are to sequence educational content in a way that allows students to learn the most quickly. And then it also uses AI to grade some of the free response questions, which is a really nice tool if you're running a language learning class. Students find it a lot of fun to use. Final category, which is short, and then we'll wrap up, which is tools that students can use or tools that teachers can use to actually teach their students AI topics in the classroom. The first one is Teachable Machine, which might be one of my favorites. And there's a little video that hopefully you can see here showing how that works. But pretty much without any code at all, classrooms can feed images or videos or sounds to this machine learning model. And then it can help classify those images into a number of bins. So that one that you just saw was cereal being sorted, whether it was actual cereal or the marshmallows. This one is showing different dance moves. There was one where it could show if it was a girl on the screen or a girl with a dog. And so this is a really cool real world example to show students that you could do in the classroom totally for free. The next one is Cyber Skills Live. And full disclosure, I helped build a lot of this website and some of the activities you see on the screen. But what we offer are completely free educational games that are meant to be played by students in the classroom all at the same time. And they go through things like data science, artificial intelligence, making decisions with data, how to look for bias. And they're a lot of fun, even though I'm certainly biased myself. I think I have one more, which is Experience AI, which is a collaboration between Google DeepMind and the Raspberry Pi Foundation out of the University of Cambridge. And if you go to the next slide, I have just an example of some of the topics that Experience AI covers. What each of these are is a comprehensive set of lesson materials that teachers can use to teach about AI in their classroom. So it covers everything from what AI is to learning from data, bias, AI in biology, large language models. And for every single one of these, what you get are a PowerPoint presentation to give in your classroom. You get a in-class activity that you can print out and give to your students. You get an answer key for that so you can go over it. And then you also get links to online resources to teach more about the topic or to learn more. And it's geared specifically to KS3 students. So that's 11 to 14-year-olds. And so this is a really excellent resource for if schools wanted to adopt an introduction to AI type course for young learners. And it's really, really excellent. Right. So the slide I've promised for 20 minutes now, which is some of the best practices that you need to think about if you're going to do all of this. Again, I'm an AI optimist, certainly, though I need to acknowledge some of its limitations and considerations. So while all of these tools and apps are really, really exciting, and I think can make a huge impact both for teachers and learners, please make sure that if you're going to bring AI into the classroom, you give some thought to these bullet points here, which are: how does the app relate to GDPR considerations? And on an even more local level, how does it relate to your school's own policies? These are definitely things that you should check before you're bringing AI into your classroom. Reading the terms of service of the apps that I just listed is probably a really good idea. Full disclosure, I've not read every single word of every single term of service of every app I just showed. So make sure there's nothing in there that would go against GDPR or your school, etc. Another is to make sure you're monitoring the output and use of some of this AI, especially for under 13s, especially when it comes to generative AI. It's not 100% child safe, unfortunately. AI just isn't. There is a chance that it could generate something that young people shouldn't be seeing or wouldn't be appropriate for young people. And so when you're dealing with under 13s, generative AI probably isn't something that you should be showing them. And even when they're above 13, if this is in the classroom, it's something that you as the teacher definitely would want to monitor to make sure that nobody is seeing anything or generating anything that wouldn't be appropriate. And finally, children have the right to privacy online. I'm going to mention this again on the last slide, but before you impose any sorts of AI tools onto the classroom, however exciting you might be about them or the students might be about them, ask your students, see what they might like, what they might be interested in, and make sure that by bringing these tools into the classroom, there is going to be some direct benefit. And children do have the right to privacy. And if they're not excited or happy with something that you're going to bring, you might want to rethink it. Final slide here, which are just conclusions. And this is just to reiterate a lot of the awesome stuff that Judy was talking about. Children have misunderstandings about how AI works. We saw that through those lovely graphs. And AI literacy is probably one of the main solutions to this problem. As children grow up in this age of AI, we would be doing them a great disservice to not give them the proper knowledge and teaching that they need to use these tools that are all around them every day. And then, like I just mentioned, we need to respect children's rights. They see a role for AI in the classroom, and they very correctly have some concerns about how their data might be used or what they say to it or do with it might get reported back to others. And this is very valid of them to think. And so we need to respect that and make sure that we aren't violating these rights that children do fundamentally have. And so there's lots of new and potentially exciting tools out there, but my take-home point is simply that there are a lot of potential privacy concerns with these, especially for young people. And so please do the research on these tools, find unique and creative ways to bring them into the classroom because they are super powerful, fun, and they make learning really exciting. But just make sure you're vetting them, you're not going against any guidelines of GDPR at your school, and that you're actually giving the students something that they might like or that they would like to use and don't feel like is violating their privacy. So that's about all I've got.
Thank you very much, Professor Robertson and Colton. This webinar was very informative in many, many ways. So particularly for a teacher trainer like me, like I found it very fascinating in terms of starting a discussion about how to integrate children into AI conversation. And for me, like, AI literacy is the first thing that I have, heard. We are talking about media literacy, but once you share these things with us, it is now time to introduce, I believe, it's time to introduce this literacy to children too. So I have several questions actually, but I would like to check with the question and answer box to see whether there is any question here. Okay, so one question that I want to ask, it will be a very short and brief question. Which age group do you think we should start for introducing AI literacy?
I think that you could probably start it from maybe about 5 or 6 in an age-appropriate way. So having conversations about which sorts of common toys have got AI in them, and then having discussions about, you know, does this dog have feelings? Does this robot dog have feelings? Does this other robot toy have feelings? And kind of bringing up discussions. I think I would probably do it under other curriculum topics. So I don't think that AI literacy needs to be a new subject. I think that it could come up during other conversations which you would have in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. I believe so too. Like, I don't think we need any, new curriculum or a course or something to introduce AI literacy. As Colton shared with the, practices, we see that it could be integrated in any subject. We need to create a conversation around how to make it part of the teaching rather than turning into the sole teaching material.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you very much for that. And one of the questions that I want to ask is about the motivation for your research. While you conducted your research, you focused on young children. And many times I hear this conversation a lot with young adults or key stage 4 students. So what was your motivation in terms of starting your research with children?
Do you mean children rather than older teenagers?
Yes.
Yeah, I think because for me, there's an interesting age where the boundary between real and make-believe is slightly blurred. So we see the younger children in the study more likely to believe that Alexa has feelings and so on, whereas the older ones are less likely to. So I wanted to look at that kind of transition age where, there's a stage where children believe in Santa Claus and they will think that maybe their teddy bear is real to them in some way. I think that that's the kind of age group where they might have beliefs about AI which might not be helpful, and they'll kind of age out of that in some sense. However, we are now doing some research with teenagers in secondary schools and high schools with a project that's just starting. So we haven't forgotten about the teenagers. It's just that I was personally interested in the younger children's views.
Mm-hmm. I see. I'm also, interested to hear more about, this children using AI and feeling, how can I say, I'm trying to choose the right words to explain my question, but sorry for that. So they are also, concerned about their privacy. We hear it a lot with your research, and also when Colton presented best practices, he also mentioned that GDPR issue, consent with parents and students, and etc. So in this sense, do you think the children have any idea about how to protect themselves in this digital world, or as adults, are we responsible to create this boundary for them?
I mean, I think that particularly young people have strategies for trying to protect their identities online, and they have some quite interesting practices around that, which some colleagues at Glasgow University are looking at. But I also think that we have a responsibility to teach them about possible data privacy issues. But it's not all the user's responsibility to do this. Technology companies have to take ownership of this and make sure that it's very clear for people to know what privacy problems might exist. It shouldn't be in 100 pages of terms and service conditions which are not written for children. It should be easily accessible by children. So if you look at the iRights Foundation, for example, they have a lot of ideas about this, the idea that children should be able to understand in clearly written English what an app will do with their data.
Thank you very much. And Colton, this question is for you. So you had your recommendations for teachers when they want to use AI tools. So you also have expertise in terms of knowing all different tools, many different tools. I can't say all because it's a massive area, but which one do you think would be the best and easiest one that all teachers across the world can use based on your experience?
Wow, that's a big question. I think different teachers might find different tools best suited to their needs. Like there are myriad tools out there for maths teachers specifically, or for English teachers specifically. But if I had to go with one, I'm going to give you two. I think that the Perplexity app has the potential to sort of be the chat GPT for teachers and academics. And it's very much in its infancy, but I think it's a lot better than chat GPT. And I'm really excited to see where that tool goes in the next couple of years. So I think that might be a big one. And then if I had to give a second, I think that the magicschool.ai is so powerful simply because of how many tools it offers. Their whole pitch is we're the only AI tool that teachers need in the classroom. So for a lot of teachers, I know it does feel like this for me sometimes, it's kind of overwhelming to look at how many tools are out there. There are literally thousands, and Magic School brings them all into one place. So it's a lot easier to learn and to digest and get to know what is out there. So I would say Perplexity and Magic School if teachers are looking for two to start out with.
Okay, so it's for the beginners, let's say, that will be, great.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. This is very informative. Thank you very much, Professor Robertson and Colton, for presenting this on such an important topic. So we reached to the end of our webinar time. Before we close out, do you have anything to add?
No, just thank you for inviting us, and we look forward to the other seminars in the series.
Thank you very much. Have a great day then.
You too. Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much. Take care.